episode of Healthy Mind, Healthy Life. I'm your host Avik, and today's episode is all about something like every entrepreneur needs to hear, like how to build wealth the smart way by mastering your tax strategy. Interesting, right? We all struggle with the tax, right? Uh, let's get into the discussion. Dear listeners, like now, taxes aren't the most exciting topic at first. I mean, at the very first glance. But what if I told you that understanding how to legally minimize your taxes could completely change your financial future and your business stability and even your peace of mind? And our guest today knows this world inside out. So please welcome my guest, Carlotta Thompson. Welcome to the show.
Hi. Thanks for having me on the show.
Amazing. And dear listeners, as you know, I always introduce you with my lovely guests. So, um, dear listeners, Carlota is the founder and CEO of Tax Strategies of America. So, her story is incredible. Like, at the age of, when she was 14 years old, uh, she fell in love with a little tax booklet and dreamt of working for the IRS. So, she made the dream a reality, like only to later realize that the IRS wasn't built to help businessmen, the small businesses the way she thought. After seeing countless entrepreneurs lose thousands in missed deductions, she switched sides from auditing to advocating. And today she helps business owners through her Pathway to Zero program, a proven system that helps entrepreneurs pay the least amount of tax legally possible. So I'll not take much of your time, dear listeners. Carlotta, welcome to the show. And I really love your story started with the passion and um, definitely with the purpose. Uh, let's dive in. Welcome to the show again.
Thank you. Thanks for having me. And I want to say, like, since we're on, the Healthy Mind podcast and we're talking about our minds, do you know one of the biggest mind blocks for business owners is taxes. Like, it literally I meet entrepreneurs all the time that they can't succeed in their business because they are, past due on filing. They're ashamed. They, didn't take care of these things. So, I want to open up with like, hey, we get those clients all the time and they're like, Carlotta, can you help me? I am 3 years behind or I'm 5 years behind or I just and I just don't know how to like get caught up. And so I want you to know like you're not alone. And as soon as you get your tax problem under control, your business will explode. Like meaning it will make more money than you ever thought possible. Because if when you get behind, there's this gnawing thing in your mind, and you may not even recognize it because it's not at the front of your mind. It's kind of in the back, and it's like, what if the IRS comes after you? What if this? What if that? So like, it it makes it where you it holds you back because you don't wanna make more money, you don't wanna be seen, you don't wanna get bigger because you're not up to date on your taxes, so, don't be like that. We can help you get caught up. It's not anything to be ashamed of, and it happens all the time. So, um, if as we're trying to talk about a healthy mind, we're trying to get our mind right, get your taxes under control, and it will change your business in so many ways.
Exactly true. Exactly true. And um, so from there, did you already have that entrepreneurial spark back then, or did your mission evolve after seeing how the system actually works from the inside?
Yeah, I've always been an entrepreneur. I feel like it's something's born in you. I was the kid that, sold candy on the playground and worked in my family's businesses. And so, like, I always had this place of like thinking that um, I had the entrepreneurial spirit, right? But as an IRS agent, I was not allowed to act on any of that and really never thought I would because I thought I would retire from the IRS. But as I started in real estate, actually, is where I kind of got my start as an adult of making more money than just a W-2 job. Was my grandma always had real estate, and so I'd go with her, and I learned a lot about it. And so as I was growing up, I was like, "You know what? I need to buy a rental property." And so we lived very much below our means. We bought rental properties and we lived in like camper trailers and we would live in like tiny houses, but we would buy real estate to rent out because we didn't care about what we lived in. We just wanted to make, more good choices, more money. Like we wanted those houses to eventually be able to pay for our house, right? And that's what we did. And so that's really how I kind of got in the place of business. But where it sparked in having my own business at the IRS is I started a ministry at night helping business owners pay less tax. And so it was a ministry outreach. I believed if I could help them pay less tax, they could give to more in tithe at the time. And so that's where it all started. I wanted to help people. I was running lives during the day and I wanted to help them at night. Well, I just went through a lot of stories at the IRS I was threatened somebody threatened to kill me, somebody, committed suicide while my friend was auditing them, like, just a lot of different things happened, and I realized, like, I'm ruining people's lives. Countless people filed bankruptcy while I was auditing them, and it was just heartbreaking. And so I kinda forced myself out, and I didn't know what I was gonna do, right? I didn't know that this business would be anything. I just knew that I had a mission to get out there and talk about this and talk about, how to pay less tax because while I was at the IRS, when I would go in and audit somebody, I would give them tax strategies so they would never be in this position again. So when they left the audit, they would get a large bill from the IRS, for the taxes that they didn't pay correctly. And then they could turn around and do tax strategy and not have to pay taxes in the future to hopefully be able to pay that tax bill. And so that's really where all this, passion came from. But one day I just got to the end of my rope and I just couldn't do it anymore. I was about to give this guy who was a blue collar worker a tax bill that was, way more than he made in a year and more than he could have ever paid. And I just felt bad about it. And so before I could finish that audit, I left and um, started the business in that ministry that I started. Those people started paying me to do their stuff a month. And so that's how I actually got started. And so this was never meant to be a business. It was actually a ministry. The business was supposed to be the real estate, and it just kind of happened. So, um,
Right.
yeah, I had the entrepreneurial spirit, but it was never planned this way for sure. I thought you'd be rolling me out of the IRS in a body bag. I thought I like my if you would have told me at 20 years old, that I would be the IRS commissioner, I would have believed you, because that's where I was going. I was going to the top. I was like, "Let me be the IRS commissioner." Now I'd be like, I wouldn't take that job for anything, but I always joke about it. I'm like, "Trump needs to hire me to be the commissioner right now." But I wouldn't take the job. But, like, I just thought so much that I could go in and just change the IRS and it'd be a company that did its work, but also helped people live within the tax laws and really, use it to their benefit, and so that's what I do on the outside.
Exactly. So, lovely. And like, are there a few overlooked deductions or the structures that could make a huge difference for small business owners?
Yeah, so a huge difference for small business owners. The things that you need to be looking for, the things that you need to be thinking about are really when you first start, you just need a good tax preparer. They're very hard to find, okay? They're very hard to find. I know why a lot of people use TurboTax because they feel like they can do their taxes better than a professional, right? But as soon as you get to the place where you're making over 40,000 after expenses, you need to invest in a tax professional because that's when you can actually start saving money on taxes just using a few strategies. It's really hard to do a business return and it be accurate on TurboTax. It's just not built for that. So I'm gonna say the first thing you need to do, get a good tax preparer. Okay. Second thing, when you're making about 40,000 after expenses and up, you need to start looking into tax strategy. Okay. Like what are some things that can help me pay less tax? Because that is about the time where you start paying a lot of taxes. At first it might only be, 8 or 10,000 in taxes on your business, but then it grows and you start filling it very rapidly, okay? So,
Mm.
focus on tax strategy and then focus on the things you're already doing that are that get can give you a credit. So what do I mean by that? A lot of times, the tax strategies that people will say that their accountant gave them is to spend more money on things they don't need, so they have a tax deduction. I'm never going to tell you to spend money on things you don't need for a tax deduction. Like, that's not tax strategy, right? So tax strategy is taking things you've already done, and making sure that you're using those to the fullest extent. So let me give you a few examples. Say, for example, when you're in real estate and you have to put maybe a disabled ramp in your real estate, right? Well, you can actually get the government to pay for that. So that's a tax strategy, not a tax deduction. It's a deduction, but you can also get a credit for it, right? Think about like if you're doing maybe some research and development, you already paid for that, but you don't even know what qualifies for a credit. So it's taking things that you're already doing and making sure that you're getting the credits the government gives you to do those things. So a credit is different from a deduction. A deduction is just something you get to take on your taxes as the expense, right? But a credit actually pays you to do those things. Very, very different. And so what we're trying to do is just shift things around and it be things that you've already done that will give you more credits on your taxes. Another thing is taking things that you've already done and moving them around on the tax return. So when I was 14 years old, if you ever hear my story, like I started reading the tax booklet, right? Well, at 18, I did a return for one of my friends and literally just moving a couple of numbers on the return that the software doesn't understand to do, I saved him $2,000 in taxes. Like, just moving numbers around. So it didn't cost him anything more. It didn't cost him anything out of pocket. It was just me understanding the tax law for what it is. It's funny because my best friend's an ex-IRS agent, and the other day, she came to work for us, and the other day she was like, "Okay, Carlotta, tell me this strategy, that you learned when you were 14." And I was like, in the publication, it literally tells you how to do it, but the softwares that people use don't do it for them. So nobody ever does it. I've never seen it on a return before, except when I've done. And so, she looked it up, she was like, "Oh my gosh, why is everybody not doing this? It's literally in the booklet on how to prepare your taxes." And I said, "I know, that's exactly right." Like, it literally is stuff that's black and white in the code, but no one's doing, and they just don't know it exists. So my goal is not to be just the normal strategist. My goal is to find you the things that you're already qualified for, but you're not doing. And that's where I come from. I don't come from a place of like, "Go spend more money, go buy this new thing." And what I do at the end when you've went through personal strategies, business strategies, real estate strategies, the things I will tell you to buy, I will coach you through buying another business, and I would coach you through buying more real estate property. Why? Because there's great tax incentives with it, but also because that's what I do, right? That's how I grow my wealth, and so I have people that come to me, for taxes on $100,000, and 2 weeks later, they're making millions because I've coached them through how to pay less taxes and how to grow their wealth. So, a byproduct of what I do is a lot of times people will come to me with a tax problem, but the byproduct is that they get super wealthy, which is not what I sell, right? I don't sell that. I don't sell that thought, but when you w the way I break down the tax code is I go and read it from the mindset of a billionaire, because if we're honest with ourselves in America, the billionaires are who are creating the tax code because they are the ones funding the congressmen who write the tax code. The IRS has nothing to do with it. And so, I go and I look at the tax code from a billionaire's perspective, and I bring that back down to the middle class, small business America.
Exactly. Exactly. So I really love that taxes shouldn't be once a year panic, but they should be a part of a long-term wealth plan. And uh,
Yes.
exactly. And you're not just helping people save money, but you are helping them reclaim their energy and the vision for their businesses. So I really love that. And um, also, a quick thing. I mean, if you can share, like, any advice, any suggestions for those small businesses or the entrepreneur? Um, so what that would be?
So, advice would be, first of all, number 1, make sure that you have all of your expenses in a spreadsheet or something like that. If you're not to the point of using, um, QuickBooks, use a spreadsheet, it doesn't matter. Make sure that your accountant, uh, is coming from the standpoint you're asking questions like, "How can I make this a tax deduction?" Quit asking, "Is this a tax section?" That is needs to become null and void from your vocabulary. You need to say, "How can I make this a tax section?" It makes them think. Also, if your tax preparer says that's not a tax section, I want you to go put it into ChatGPT. So ChatGPT will set you can put in there and you can say, "How can I make my classic car collection a tax section? How can I make my um, swimming pool a tax deduction?" Like, there are ways to make every single thing a tax deduction, okay? Just remember this one thing, and I'm in ministry, not jail ministry, but let me tell you something. Drugs are a deduction in the US tax code for a drug dealer. So if drugs are a tax deduction, everything can be a tax deduction in in a specific situation, which is crazy. And it's something that I want to jolt you out of your seat to be like, "Oh my gosh, like if that's true,
Um,
then everything is true, right?" And so I want you to come at things from that perspective of how can I? Number 2, I want you to remember that everything is a tax deduction that you get as a gift that you, maybe used from a prior year, that maybe you, bought it personally from, 2 years ago and now you've started using it for business. Maybe you got a gift from a family member that now you're using in business. All those things are a tax deduction. It is deducted at the lesser of the fair market value or what your family member paid for it or what you paid for it, right? So think about this. There's a lot of small business owners in America, even me, and I'm, over 10 million now. That we buy stuff in our past lives. Like every year, I sit down and I talked to my husband, I'm like, "Okay, what have we bought before this year that we started using in the business that we've never deducted before?" So I'm talking things like computers, tractors, trailers, desk, furniture, anything that we've started using in the business, make sure that I deduct it. What are Christmas gifts, Mother's Day gifts, things like that that he bought me that's on a credit card somewhere that I didn't deduct? Write those down. So, like, he bought a coffee maker that's used in the office. I need to down, I need to make sure I deduct that because those are the things that we forget about. Number 3, if your tax preparer says everything is a red flag, you need to really determine if they're trying to work for the IRS or if they're trying to work for you. There are so many preparers out there that act like they are, working for the government instead of working for you. That's why I'm constantly telling you to ask, like, "How can I make this a tax deduction?" Because it really tells you the thought process of your accountant. So, like, if I say, "Is my camper a tax deduction?" They're gonna say no, right? Because in their minds, you're going out and you're camping in it and you're taking your little family out. But if you change that and say, "How can I make my camper a tax deduction?" They're they're going to start thinking, well, if you use it on a business trip, right? If you're going on that business trip, you're, driving out in the camper, you're staying in it, maybe it's not 100% business use because maybe you're using it for some other things, but maybe it's 10%, maybe it's 50%. So just quit asking that question of "Is this?" Because it's a closed-ended question that doesn't leave room for elaboration. So those are my top 3 tips for sure.
Lovely. Amazing. So, Carlotta, I mean, this has been such a valuable and eye-opening conversation, and I would say that you have shown us that the tax strategy isn't about the loopholes; it's all about the leadership. And uh, for the entrepreneurs who are listening, like if you are serious about building sustainable success, um, take control of your financial story. Don't just think about the revenue, think about the retention. The money you keep is just as important as the money you make. So thank you so much, Karida, for reminding us the financial literacy is a form of empowerment, and the clarity obviously creates calm. And before we move, like if someone wants to connect with you, what will be the great medium to connect?
That we're on all the channels. It's Carlotta Thompson Finance. We're on TikTok, Instagram, Facebook. We're also have several websites. We have carlottathompson.com, taxstrategistofamerica.com. There's lots of different websites out there for us. Google us, Carlotta Thompson. You'll find me, I promise. And get on one of our trainings. We have a 2-hour training happening several times a year where it's like a college level course and we just go through like what do you need to be looking for? What are some strategies you can start working on today? And it's not like a sales webinar, it's like a 2-hour, course that we give so that you can, get ahead in this tax game.
Mm, amazing. Lovely. So, dear listeners, I'll put all the links into the show notes for your easy reference. And with this hope, until next time, this is your host, Ravik, signing off from Healthy Mind, Healthy Life. Stay mindful, stay smart, and remember that health and wealth work best when they work together. So, thank you so much.